Special products. All right, this is a fun one, y'all, because what we're going to do in this particular lesson is we are going to take and we're going to do just the same thing we did last lesson on distributed property stuff, and we're going to learn some shortcuts for certain situations. Let's dive right in. So if we have square of a sum, now this one and then the different square of a difference, which we'll see in a minute as well. These are kind of a big deal, and because they're a big deal, and the reason they're a big deal is because they represent a really common mistake. And I'm gonna highlight that here. What if we have a plus b squared, that quantity squared, that does not equal a squared plus b squared. You can't just like distribute that squared. If this was a times b, right, then it is a squared b squared, but not plus, right? And that is really important. That's kind of the thing that I want to make a big deal about here, is that you absolutely cannot just do this. Now, there is a shortcut, right? So a plus b squared is a plus b times a plus b, right? That's what squared means. Now, normally we'd have to do the distributive property, right? And do a plus b times a plus b. And if we did it the way we did in the last lesson, you'd have to do a times a is a squared, and then a times b is a times b, and then b times a is plus a times b. I changed the order, right? We can do that. Plus b squared. Now, you notice that these two middle terms, the outside and inside terms, they're the same. And this is always going to be true. If we're squaring a binomial, then those outside and inside terms are the same. So it's plus 2 times those two things multiplied together. So this is just kind of a shortcut for when we're squaring a binomial. Let's do an example and show you kind of what we're talking about. So this guy, again, if we did this the normal way, we'd have to turn this into 3x plus 5 times 3x plus 5, multiply the first two and get 9x squared. Then the last one, which would be, or the outside one, which would be plus 15x, and then the inside one is going to be plus 15x, and then the last one, which would be 5 times 5 is plus 25, right? And then these added together would be 30x, right? So we could do all of that work, or we could just use this shortcut formula and we could do it that way, right? So instead of writing it all out and doing the thing, then we can just kind of do the beginning, and we can square the first one. So 3x squared is 9x squared, right? We have to square them both because they're multiplied, right? Not added. And then plus 2 times 3x times 5x, because a times b times, I'm going to write all this out, but you could even do this even quicker potentially once you get the hang of it, right? Times a times b plus b squared, which would be 25. And all of this, 2 times 3 times 5 is 30. So 9x squared plus 30x plus 25. Now you might be like, well, that takes the same number of lines as this one does, and that's true if you write it all out. But as you practice this and you get better and better at this, you can just do 2 times this times this. So 3 times 5 is 15, times 2 is 30. And you can go straight from this line to that line. Make sure you're practicing good, and if you practice really well with the last lesson and then move to this one, it's going to make it even easier. This is something that's important to say, especially in Algebra 1, that if shortcuts are causing you to make mistakes, then don't use the shortcuts. Use the long cuts, right? So whatever you need to do to not make those mistakes. So here's the next thing, and that is a square of a difference. Now, this is really actually the exact same thing. Now, and that's because if we have this, and if b is negative, then a negative times a positive, b times a, turns into a negative. That's why this middle term turns out negative. So it's really the same thing other than that. All right, so let's do another example, and this time we're gonna go straight to the punchline. So the first one is this squared. So 2x squared is 4 squared, because we got to square both of them. 4x squared. And then minus, because positive times the negative is minus, 2 times 2 times 5 is 4 times 5, which is 20. And then xy, because as we're multiplying the two of these together, x times y is x times y, right? And then plus, and the reason it's plus on this last one, because if we square a negative, then we end up with a positive. That's not why that last one is still positive. So plus all this squared, so that would be 25y squared. That's nice and handy. Let's do another principle. This one is particularly nice. So if we have two binomials multiplied where the sign is switched in between them, so a plus b times a minus b, which is the same. We could reverse that order because multiplication is commutative, right? So we could switch it to a minus b times a plus b. Then normally when we do that FOIL, right? When we do FOIL, we do first, outside, inside, last, but the outside and the inside are going to cancel. So we just end up with a squared minus b squared. So the first times the last. Now, let me show you why this, let me kind of do this all out. So if we have a minus b times a plus b, right? A times a is a squared, right? A times b is plus ab, right? And then negative b times a is negative ab. You can see what's going to happen, right? And then negative b times negative b is negative b squared. That's why that one is negative, because it's a positive times a negative this time, right? So that's why it kind of shifts from the last one and the one before that. So these are going to cancel, and that is always going to happen when we have the same things multiplied together with a sign change in the middle. We can just square the first one minus the square of the second one. This particular slide right here is going to be real important lead in to the, I think it's the last lesson we cover in this unit, or the next to last lesson, because we're going to go from this back to that. More sourdough things. I'll do it in a second. All right. So here is this example. So this, you can see that this guy and this guy match, and then this one and that one match, except the signs are backwards. So this is exactly like what we saw on the last thing. So it's the same thing with different signs in the middle. So this is going to turn into just a squared. So 2 squared is 4x squared squared, right? X squared squared. When we have a power to a power multiply, 2 times 2 is 4. So x to the 4th. And then minus b squared, so 3 squared is 9, and that is all she wrote for that. And that, believe it or not, is the last example. I told you this was going to be a pretty straightforward one. It's just the same stuff with some shortcuts. It's a good lesson. Hope you're having fun. I sure am. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. It helps me out, and it doesn't hurt you at all. So have a good one. Bye-bye.